Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news where we've got some positives and I suppose some negatives. Big transfer boost around Ralf Rangnick and looking at potential midfielders to bring in January that Manchester United will apparently back him. Some updates on other players that should be leaving in January as well. Of course, we'll be talking about the guy on the thumb there, which is Amadou Haidara. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Interesting player, exciting player, and certainly a player that I think would definitely improve Manchester United's midfield, although there are other options. But we're going to start off with the big news, and that is that Ralf Rangnick is unlikely to be involved in the Arsenal game and may even miss the Palace game. Really disappointing. I think this is an example of... You know what this is an example of? A week ago, people were talking about Glazers out, protests, the club's a joke, they've got no plans in place. We hear on the Thursday last week that we're getting Ralf Rangnick, everyone gets very excited, and then we haven't got Ralf Rangnick. It reminds me of the signing of Varane, which was very exciting, and then for some reason we seem to take weeks to get that Varane deal over the line, and he therefore missed the first couple of games of the season, didn't he? So this is Manchester United. You know, even when they do something good, they let themselves down because of mistakes. The big mistake here was this just goes back to how they handled the Solskjaer situation. They desperately wanted to keep Solskjaer in a job. They desperately wanted to maintain the status quo. Solskjaer should have gone in the international break. Rangnick would have come in the international break. His work permit would have been sorted in the international break. I believe with Rangnick in charge, we would have beaten Watford. So we'd have 3 more points. Chelsea, we probably, I can't argue with the draw. But this Arsenal game is massive. If we don't beat Arsenal on Thursday, or even worse, if we lose, then we have got a massive problem getting top 4. I just think that it's not on Rangnick. It can't be his fault. This is on the club. They've taken too long to do what everybody knew needed to be done 3 or 4 weeks ago, and now we're paying the price. It's a shambles to not have Rangnick in place for this Arsenal game. It really is. To still have Michael Carrick running the team for Arsenal is a massive risk, because you know what he's going to do. Maguire comes straight back into that team. He'll start McFred, and I'm sorry, when was the last time we won a midfield battle? And if you lose a midfield battle, you struggle to win a game. So I'm worried. Look, maybe McFred under Rangnick would win us the game, but we're not under Rangnick. We're under Carrick, and Carrick ain't Rangnick. And Carrick's football, as we've seen, is very, very submissive. So we need a bit of luck on Thursday night, I think, now, because we've certainly not got it with Rangnick. Now, the one thing I would say is that he is the Manchester United manager. He's just waiting on a work permit. So it's not like there can't be conversations. There weren't conversations for the Chelsea game. There has to be some sort of conversations going on. But the problem is, it's all right him telling Carrick do this, do that, but he's not on the training ground. And his authority is we're not going to get the bounce, I'm afraid, until he's on the training ground. So it's disappointing. It's really disappointing that Manchester United have basically snoozed on this, because this should have been done a long time ago. And look, I applaud the club on getting Rangnick. I applaud... I'm not going to lie, if this all goes wrong, I will say that I personally feel that this is the best idea. I'm not a big fan of interims, but this isn't an interim. This is somebody coming in to manage the team and then move upstairs and build the squad and build the structure of the club. So I agree with it. I'm not totally having a go at the club for this, but I just think that this evident, unfortunately in life, it's not good and bad. There's life in between, and the reality is we should have done this 3 weeks ago. And if we'd done it 3 weeks ago, we'd be well into this Rangnick journey now. This is another game where we're not ready. We're not equipped. We're going into another game with an interim coach, and with an interim coach, he's not an interim coach, a caretaker coach, Carrick the caretaker. It worries me. It worries me because Arsenal are not in that situation. They're in a good vein of form apart from that Liverpool result. It worries me, and I think it's really disappointing. And the reality is, I think it's true as well. If you don't have Rangnick for Arsenal, you don't really have him for Palace. We won't be training on Friday. We're playing on Sunday lunchtime. Saturday will be a light session. He's not gonna. The impact's going to be minimal. He needed to be on that training ground today, and I still hope that could happen. But yeah, it is very disappointing, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. Just on Rangnick, just to develop that a little bit more, he will be bringing a small staff with him, and he wants to bring an assistant with him that can implement the pressing. We don't press enough. He can't trust Carrick or McKenna to teach the team how to press when they've been teaching them to park the bus for 3 years. they will be coaches that need to learn themselves. So he needs to bring somebody with him that can implement the pressing style that he wants. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with that. But he's not in the team yet. Just very interesting before we talk about this transfer boost as well. So Rangnick at this moment in time not expected to be involved in the Arsenal game, potentially not really involved in the Palace game as well. Shambles, really. This should have been done weeks ago. It just shows you how ill prepared the football club was, and how, pardon the pun, pardon the statement, balls deep on the Solskjaer reign. They were so desperate for that Solskjaer thing to work. The Liverpool loss, the Leicester loss, the Man City loss, they would have still stuck by him. That Watford loss basically was the time they thought, we've got to make a change. And you can see how ill prepared they were all through the international break. They've bottled this, and they've made the right decision. But they should have done it earlier, and now we're paying the price, because if we don't win against Arsenal, this is on the board, I'm afraid. They've dithered. I just hope that Arsenal game, Rangnick should be here now. He really should. But look, obviously I spoke about last night. What a cracking video it was last night, talking about Rangnick's pressing style. Before we talk about this transfer news, because there's quite a lot to get through, especially about Amadou Haidara. Interesting thing I saw this morning about the top 3 Manchester United players with pressing per 90 minutes. Now, Donny's not in there because I don't think he's played 90 minutes. So Donny's not even in the top 10. But the top 3 players who've pressed this season are Fred, by quite a bit, Pogba and Bruno. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? Fred, Pogba and Bruno. It almost could be a midfield 3. Many people like that as a midfield 3. But the players that have pressed the most for Manchester United this season are Fred, Pogba and Bruno. 4th place is Sancho. So that just shows you how stupid, really, or actually not stupid, that just shows you how the Solskjaer regime didn't want to press. Because Pogba was playing off the left-hand side, he pressed a lot, Bruno pressed a lot, Fred pressed a lot, but was being told to stay part as a back 6, and Sancho hardly played. So that just shows you, doesn't it? The 4 players that pressed the most, really, apart from Bruno, have been in different positions. So there we go. But yeah, I think we all know that Fred's going to be a big example of a player that can improve under this manager. But yeah, a lot of people are surprised by Pogba's pressing. But yeah, I suppose the thing with Pogba is that he played on the left a lot, didn't he? So, pressing from the front. But, it's interesting about Pogba, that is. Anyway, let's move on. We're talking about Fred. Let's talk about Amadou Haidara, who is a 23-year-old midfielder from Leipzig. We've been mentioning him a few times the last few days, but he's been mentioned this morning on the morning, so we'll mention it in the morning news show. Daily Mail mentioned it, but also Hurst Class has mentioned it, and specifically around midfielders that United would like to look at. Now, he is apparently a player that United are going to scout. They even mention a game against Union Berlin that Leipzig are playing apparently very, very soon. He doesn't necessarily need scouting anyway, because Ralf Rangnick knows a lot about him. He came from Salzburg to Leipzig, and there was crossover with Rangnick, who knows a lot about this player. I suppose the interesting thing I would say, first of all, and Liam says, is he a CDM? Haidara is... he's not really a CDM. He, to be honest with you, I think if you played him and Fred, you'd have the perfect balance of what Rangnick wants in his midfield too. Rangnick doesn't really want a holding midfielder in the sense that just stand there like Jorginho and just dictate the play. He wants a team that, remember what we were talking about last night. He might play a 4-2-3-1, whatever, but he might play a 4-4-2, he might play a 4-2-2-2. Whatever he's going to play, his midfield too, remember, will not be holding the midfield deep, because his centre-backs will be on the halfway line. He wants midfielders that press. He wants their midfielders to force the press forward. So you're not really looking at a Fabinho type or a Matic or a Jorginho type. You're more looking at a modern way of playing. You're looking at 2 Freds, really. Now, that might scare people because 2 Freds would be a nightmare based on the last 6 months, although the last 2 games he's been a lot better. So Haidara would be a player that's more energetic, more tenacious. He's been likened to, obviously the obvious connection, and people won't like this, but, he did do very well at Leipzig. They've called him the last sort of, the next sort of Naby Keita. There's even been talk about Steven Gerrard. Unfortunately, they're both Liverpool players. I suppose from a Manchester United point of view, I can't really think of a midfielder that we've ever had like that. The one that I would mention is one that I hardly really even saw, who there's a new documentary about, Brian Robson. This all-action midfielder who can score goals, defend, a number 8 really. A modern 8 where you can play 2 8s. He's very good in the tackle. He's very tenacious in the tackle, but he can get forward and he's got a shot on him. So look, this probably won't happen, but I think what you'd probably see if we did get a hold of Haidara, you'd have a midfield two of Fred and Haidara. I think that would be it. And people saying, well, there's no holding midfielder, but that you don't understand the Ralf Rangnick way then. Like you would play with your centre-backs very high, and then your two midfielders would be a Fred and Haidara who would, push forward. Because the interesting thing is, he may well use McTominay in that role. Some people would say he might use Donny in that role. The problem with McTominay is that, and I'll give you a problem with Donny as well. The problem with Donny is that people think that he's not very good defensively. Well, if he's not very good defensively, that's going to be a hole on that side of the midfield. I personally think maybe he is, but we'd have to see him in that role. The problem with McTominay is he doesn't actually press that much, and also, I think he's not a player that thinks on emotion. I think he thinks things through. He takes a touch. He looks around. So, whatever you say about Fred, he does live on the edge. You can tell he lives on the edge because look what he did against Chelsea when the goalkeeper Mendy passed it to him. If he thought things through, he might have passed that to Ronaldo or Lingard. He doesn't. He just plays on in his emotion. He went, I'm going to score. Which actually is the sort of way that Ralf Rangnick wants his players to play. He wants them to play on the edge, but he wants them to be intelligent so that when they're playing on the edge, they make the right decisions naturally. Bruno, Sancho types of players. So, be very interesting. And with Amadou Haidara, you're looking at 33 million quid. So, look, the Mail go on to mention Calvin Phillips, Tchouaméni, Declan Rice. Well, Calvin Phillips is probably going to cost you 60 million from Leeds. Declan Rice is probably going to cost you 80 million from West Ham. Tchouaméni you probably get for a good price. And, I think Tchouaméni's a player that I'd have to see a little bit more of him to see what he's like whether he just fits into a Rangnick system. But Haidara, 33 million quid, he is the sort of player that Ralf Rangnick wants, and he's going to be half the price of a Calvin Phillips. I also feel that Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice and Tchouaméni are legacy of, they're a bit like when Oli came in, we still got linked to Milinkovic-Savic, Koulibaly and a couple of Perisic, people like that, who were Mourinho targets. So Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips, Kieran Trippier, doesn't mean we won't go for those players, but they're definitely players that have been scouted during the Oli era. And if you're a new manager, you normally say, I don't really want what they wanted. And to be honest with you, I'd be very surprised if Rangnick wants players that Oli wanted, because as we spoke about last night, the difference in style of football is ridiculous. As we said yesterday morning, when you look at Manchester United's pressing, we're 20th in the league, we're bottom of the league. When you look at Leipzig under Rangnick, they were top. So very different style of football, which means you'll have very different style of footballers. Did you check the Muppeteers tweet earlier? They've tracked a chartered flight from Leipzig. Can it be Rangnick's, says Rahul? I mean, I was going to mention that. I'm not big on conspiracy theories, but Flight Tracker does make me laugh. It has been something of the transfer window for the last sort of 5 years, really. There apparently was a plane that flew in from Leipzig, an uncharted plane. Look, I really hope nothing will make me happier than Rangnick being in the club today. And if he is, I'll applaud the board and say, look, that story this morning was obviously inaccurate. But I do think that regardless of whether Rangnick starts today, and it doesn't look very likely, it looks like he's going to miss the Arsenal game. But regardless of however that works, this still should have been sorted in the international break. Effectively, he should have been in for the Watford game if we want to be really harsh. But definitely should have been in for the Chelsea game. And 100% should be here this morning. And that's not the case. So, look, the board have got it right in the end. But again, it's like the Varane signing. That was a good signing, but he wasn't here for the opening day because we dithered on it. We got caught up in red tape. You've got to... It's all right. It's not an excuse when you get caught up in red tape. I tried to open a bank account, but, I had to send documents in and it takes 2 weeks. We should have done it 2 weeks earlier then. I've turned up and my passport's out of date. We should have bloody checked it. So after losing to us, Spurs had Conte before the week was over. Why can't we do the same? Both are EU citizens, so should be the same speed, says Angela. Well, I don't know the technicalities of that, Angela, but I think that you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. That this should have been dealt with better. But look, before we move on, Amadou Haidara. I don't know loads about him. Obviously I've seen little bits of him, but the profile of the player, and look, there's no guarantee with a transfer anyway, so I'm not bothered what I'm about to say because there's no guarantee that any player is going to work out well. He does look like the sort of player that would improve our midfield massively, especially in the way that we're going to play. So let's wait and see what happens with that one. Just moving on, just a few other things to bring you as well. When will Varane be back, says Samuel? Well, I'm going to do the Arsenal preview this afternoon, so we'll see what happens with that one. But I do feel that, I know that he was meant to be back. I almost felt if Ollie'd still been in charge, he would have been he might have tried to get him in for the Chelsea game. But sorry, I'm just trying to get some information here. But we've not really heard anything on Varane for a while. We know that he was back in training on the bike a couple of weeks ago, but we haven't seen anything in relation to him, training with the first team. And I think if Arsenal's too soon, then Crystal Palace is going to be too soon, isn't it? But we'll see what happens with that. I think Varane back in the team, especially in the way that we're going to play. You want Varane to be back in the team ASAP. But no, there's no certainty around Varane at the moment as to when he's going to be back, and we do need him back definitely. There's even Sky this morning are at the training ground for Manchester United reporting that the Rangnick has still got a few hurdles to get through for the visa, and I do think that's a great point by Angela, by the way. Why did Spurs not have this problem with Conte? How could Spurs sack Nuno and seamlessly go to Conte? Why was his work permit fine? Is that because he'd worked in England for Chelsea? Well, Brexit happened after that. So I don't know. But United, again, just the same as with Varane, United have gone and got caught up in this. And I don't know who's responsible. But if I was Ed Woodward, I'd be fuming this morning. I would be fuming with somebody at that football club. I'd be saying, how have we allowed this to happen again? It happened with Varane. We got caught in red tape getting him into the country. How have we allowed it to happen again? Why are other clubs not getting caught up like we are? Somebody in that club has messed up, haven't they? Will Rangnick bring in promising youngsters, thinking Garner and Lard have a big future with us? Well, they won't be doing that this season, Ramon. He's got to steady the ship with what he's got. The press conference is tomorrow, but unfortunately it's going to be Carrick by the sounds of it. So, that's disappointing. I mean, hopefully we'll get some clarity today, but before I move on, let me just say this. This will be different to Chelsea because Rangnick will be talking to Carrick, but he needs to be on the training ground to get a real bounce. You're not going to get a bounce on a Zoom call. I'm sure United could arrange a Zoom call with Rangnick to the players. Whether they'll do that or not, I don't know. You don't need a bloody work permit to do that. You need a work permit to be in the country. They could get Rangnick on a Zoom call today and spend an hour with the players talking about what he wants. I hope that as a minimum they do that. We can get some influence from Rangnick for that Arsenal game, but it's not going to be anywhere near as what it could have been if he'd have been on the training ground at 10 o'clock this morning. Would you ever do an MUTV watch-along of classic finals, says Danny G? We did it before. Not many people actually pay attention and watch it, mate, to be honest, but we have tried it before. Okay, so let me just talk about a couple of things from Manchester Evening News. Samuel Luckhurst is saying that Juan Mata will be looking to go in January. I thought he already did. I mean, where's Mata? I saw him on the side of a milk carton this morning. I mean, he's just gone missing, hasn't he? Ricky won't be very happy, but you could see this coming a mile off. And again, I mean, look, I don't want to talk about Solskjaer because Solskjaer's gone, and I think too many people still talk about Solskjaer. The only discussion we should be having about Solskjaer is the things that we are looking to improve because of what happened under him. It's a tiring project, it's a tiring subject, but the reality is we had too many attackers in the summer, and it felt like to me, I almost envisage Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in his office with Carrick and McKenna and Phelan, a bit like X Factor. And all Man United's midfielders and attackers queuing up, and they come in, and Juan Mata's there doing some keep-ups, and Carrick's like, "Why, aye, man, we've got a lot of players. I don't think we need him." I like him, Carricky. Mata, you're in. It's a yes from me, and he's in. And then Lingard comes in, and he says, "Look what I've done. I've won a Player of the Month in the Premier League." Carricky's like, "Well, we've got too many attacking midfielders, man." I like him, Carricky. Lingy, you're in. I joke, but it does feel like we had this line of people coming through, and nobody at any point said to them, Do you realise we've got too many? You know, even on the X Factor for the live shows, they cut them down. Like, we just took too many players on this summer. And, you know, Lingard should have been sold, 25 million. I like Lingard, but he should have been sold. We don't need him. Mata should have been let go. You know, he was out of contract. He should have been let go. I mean, look, I'll say this, and I don't feel like saying this because we're in a positive state of mind. As soon as Rangnick comes in, I think this club's going to change massively on the footballing side of things. But it doesn't excuse the failings of the past. And it's very frustrating that, you know, somebody's messed up big time in not having Rangnick in for today. It's a joke, an absolute joke. But what can we do? But in relation to Juan Mata, somebody's made a stupid decision there. And it's right up there with giving Phil Jones a 5-year contract. Right up there with giving Andres Pereira a massive contract. You know, right up there with giving Eric Bailly a massive contract when, you know, you don't pick him. But Juan Mata's got to be one of the worst. Because Juan Mata was on 140k a week. Now, he might not be on that anymore, but I bet he's still on a good whack. We've basically paid Juan Mata a few million quid between the summer and Christmas for nothing. Absolutely nothing. And people said, wow, he's going to be a bit of a coach. Well, I hope he hasn't been a coach because you don't want to be attached to that shit. So what was the point in keeping Juan Mata at the club? He could have been in Spain, playing for a La Liga side, in the sun, back at home, enjoying his football. Because he's still got something to offer, but he's got nothing to offer for United. He's dusted now. He was dusted under Ollie. He's absolutely dusted under Rangnick. I mean, pressing, he'll pass out after 2 minutes, Juan Mata. He's never been any good at that. So... no, Mata has got to go in January, and you have to question why he was kept on in the first place. There's a wasted amount of money there. You know, there's about, let's say Mata's on 100 grand a week, 400 grand a month. You know, 2 months that's 800, 4 months. You know, there's a good 2-3 million we've wasted there. This means the return of Magaluf and McFred, doesn't it? Absolutely distraught that these lot will be starting yet again, says Gabriel Noel. And thoughts on the 20 legend banner being shown Thursday, Mark? Do people need to let it go, or is it just a good gesture, says Ben? I spoke about it last night. I want to talk about Dalot now, but I spoke about it last night. I've got no problems with the banner. I personally do feel that the fan base in a certain area is over egging the pudding. Ollie's a legend. If people want to show a banner for Ollie, that's their right. And as a player, I think it's very important that, you know, Ollie... you know, the way I read it is that crap manager, legend player, you've been sacked, but we still love you as a player. That's how I read it. If it's a thank you for being our manager, that's a bit sad, really. Because, and look, people have got every right to do what they want, and I've got every right to say what I want. It's not a falling out part here. But what I'm saying is that if we are saying thank you, Ollie, for the last 3 years, I mean, it's just another thing for rival clubs to take the piss out of us for. Thank you for what? Like, the football's been crap for the last year. We finished second because Liverpool had an injury crisis and Chelsea only started halfway through the season when Tuchel came in. We've never won a trophy. So, thank you for what? Like, how can you say thank you for something when everything he did is going to get torn up and thrown in the bin? Like, everything he did is going to get torn apart because it didn't work. But so I see it as thank you. Well, not thank you. I see it as you didn't work out as a manager, but we're not going to hold it against you because you're forever going to be a legend and we love you for that. That's how I see it. But people have every right to do it how they want, and it's certainly not something to start falling out about. You can't dictate to people what they think and what they want to do. And as I always said about our support, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think we've got the best away support in the country. And whether it was David Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, they sang for them until they were sacked. And that's what they will do for Rangnick. I've got no doubt about it. Souness said that the appointment is bad. Thoughts, says Daniel. I think Graham Souness is bitter. What do you think a Brighton right back? He would be better than Trippier, says Dazzo. I really liked Tariq Lamptey. I know he's had a few injury problems, but he was fantastic at the weekend for Brighton. I really, really do like him, and I would take him every day of the week. And to be honest with you, if you're looking for somebody who's going to fit into a Rangnick system, Lamptey is going to be way better than Trippier. I mean, whatever you think about Trippier, he's 31 next. You know, you want your fullbacks to be energetic. Therefore, you want them to be no later than mid-20s. So, yeah, that's what I would go with. I mean, talking about the right-back situation, Dalot, this is coming from Samuel Luckhurst in the Manchester Evening News. Dalot has got is no competition. Basically, this is coming from Manchester Evening News, that the Manchester United staff see Dalot as no competition for Wan-Bissaka, so that we still need a right back. But what I would say, I would jump on this straight away and say Rangnick's not seen Dalot, so this isn't coming from Rangnick, and that story is very dangerous, because when that story is put out there that Dalot is not seen as competition for Wan-Bissaka by the Man United staff, let me flip that round. Who's the Man United staff? Carrick, McKenna and Phelan. All who should have been sacked. So I would turn that round and say, I don't trust your fucking judgment. I don't care what you say about Dalot. You shouldn't even be in a job. So the Man United staff are putting it out there that Dalot's not seen as competition for Wan-Bissaka. I'm putting it back and saying, I don't trust your judgment. You three are all shit. So let's see what the real man thinks about Dalot. That's what I would say. Because I don't trust their opinion on Dalot. I mean, this is the team that keeps picking McTominay and Fred, who have lost nearly every midfield battle they've played this season, and we're into double figures. This is the coaching staff that picks Maguire and gives him the captain's armband when he's cost us games this season and been injured. Like, let's not forget, Harry Maguire trained once, then played against Leicester and cost us the game when Eric Bailly was fully fit. And we've seen that Eric Bailly can make a mistake, but we've also seen him play very well against Atalanta and Chelsea. So I tell you what, I don't give a shit what this Man United staff think about Dalot. I don't trust your judgment. Let's wait till the real man comes in and see what he thinks of Dalot. Because, look, Dalot might not be good enough. I'm not going to pretend that he is. I have massive concerns about Telles and Dalot defensively. But you could argue that both of them have the potential to really push Shaw and Wan-Bissaka going forward. And in a Rangnick system, our fullbacks are going to become like wingers because they're going to be playing so far forward. So, look, there is an argument there that Dalot should be given a chance. And also, I do think it's a little bit unfair that we get a story this morning about Dalot not being seen as competition for Aaron Wan-Bissaka, when it's universally understood that every player deserves a clean slate. And it's universally understood that Rangnick hasn't even trained these players yet. So why is there a story coming out about Dalot not being good enough when the manager hasn't even trained him yet, and also everybody gets a clean slate? It's a bit of a... And I don't know where it's sourced from, but it's a bit of a story that I just think just throws negativity at Dalot when he deserves a clean slate under a new manager. I mean, I could do that and it would be very unjust. What if I was to say, I don't know, Harry Maguire should never play for Man United again. He's been absolutely shit. He's a rubbish captain. Get him out of the club. Don't give him a second chance. Don't give him a chance to be captain again. Get him out. That's massively unfair. Massively unfair, because he's been playing under Ollie. He's been rushed back. He's not had a strong manager telling him to take more time. You know, he's going to get coached totally differently. For me, every player gets a clean slate, including Diogo Dalot. So let's not start casting aspersions on players who've not even been coached by the new manager yet and deserves a clean slate like everybody does. So I don't actually know where that's come from, but Man United staff don't see Dalot as competition for Wan-Bissaka is massively insulting for Dalot, because, but I would say, Dalot, do what I do. Turn it around and say, who are you to tell me I'm not good enough? Let's go through the list of mistakes you lot have made, because I tell you what, I could write a book and it'd be called The Crappiest Coaches in the World, Volume 1, because I could write 3, I could write a trilogy. So, you know, it does get me mad, because I'm not even a big fan of Dalot, but I just think those sort of stories coming out before the managers even coach them, we know who the Man United staff are. And I tell you what Man United staff should do? Shut up, go and sit in the corner and count yourself very lucky that you're getting a second chance. Because Ollie's gone, and you should have gone with him, a lot of you. So, Man United staff, if you are leaking stuff out, shut up. Shut up and get on with your job, because you've got a lot of arse licking to do to get back in favour, and leaking stuff out about players is not the way to go. I hope Fred and Scott improve under Ralf, as we have seen glimpses of how good they are. I think in relation to Fred, we've seen glimpses over the last couple of days, couple of games. I disagree on McTominay. The jury's out for me with him, but I would put McTominay in the category of Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw this season, Bruno, Rashford. I actually don't think Wan-Bissaka's been that bad, but you could throw him in there. There's a few players that are, you know, nowhere near performing where they need to perform, and yeah, we'll see what happens. But These same people in the media giving McTominay man of the match probably resonate most with the way Burnley play football. Thankfully, we can trust Ralph's judgment. Hey, I just want to shout out Robert McCormack, who's done super chats in the past and may well be watching, may well not be watching. He sent us an email the other day, which I did read, Robert. Don't worry about that. And he didn't like he basically accused me of having an agenda against Scott McTominay, which I'm big enough to read that and have a look at that. And what I would say, Robert, is you certainly got me thinking, because I watched the game again. But I don't change my opinion. I really don't think he played well. I don't think he deserved man of the match. I think Fred deserved it more than him. Lindelof and Bailly deserved it more than him. De Gea deserved it more from him. And Sancho deserved it more from him. I don't think he played very well. At a push, I'd be happy to say he played okay. I think Matic was better than him as well. So I don't have an agenda. If I had an agenda, I would be sitting here saying sell him, he's shit. I'm not saying that. There might be a player in there, but Rangnick's going to have to find it. And it's the same with quite a few of our players. So, look, my history is very good. I've slated Matic and said he's like a bag of cement, bury him. And, he came back and played really well for 6 months. So, anything is possible with these players. And I don't think, I've always said with these players as well, you can't argue with their efforts. I mean, look, one of the scariest things for me was that these players were all really sad when Ollie got sacked. You think some of the fans were sad. The players were really distraught when Ollie got sacked. Now, but what people don't think about with this is, imagine Manchester United. Sorry, there's a tweet that's just come out. So just remind me about this, because this is a Simon Stone tweet. Let's just get it. Ralf Rangnick won't be in charge for Man United game against Arsenal on Thursday. Club continuing to work through visa and COVID process. That's a real big shame, that is. Real big shame. And I think at the end of the day, that's from Simon Stone. That's tier 1. Ralf Rangnick won't be in charge for Manchester United's game against Arsenal on Thursday. Club continuing to work through visa and COVID process. You know what? This is Manchester United all over. And fans need to stop going from one extreme to the other. Glazers out, Glazers in. Glazers out, Glazers in. Woodward out, Woodward in. Woodward out, Woodward's the boss. The reality is, the consistent truth about Manchester United is they can do good things, but they tend to mess them up. And this is what's happened here. Rangnick is an interim fucking coach. It's not like signing Lionel Messi. We're signing an interim coach who's going to become a director of football, basically. And we can't even get him into the club a week after we announced we got him. Like, they've been working on this Rangnick deal for nearly fucking over a week. We interviewed him a week ago yesterday. And we still haven't got a work permit and a visa. We're Manchester United. Somebody somewhere must be able to ring that office and go, there's a bit extra, sort it out. It's a shambles. They've absolutely bantered themselves again. And if we lose to Arsenal, it's on the board. It's not on Rangnick and it's not really on Carrick. It's on the board. We are going to be playing Arsenal with the same set of coaches that have fucked us over for the last 3 years. It's so frustrating. This is meant to be a reset and it's a massive game. They're 5 points ahead of us. We've got to win that game. You were fair, Robert. You are right. Ed Woodward Hokey Cokey says this is, you know what this reminds me of again? Burnley, Bruno. We spent all of January negotiating with Sporting Lisbon for Bruno, and we got him in right at the end. And during that time, we lost to Burnley. And if we'd have had Bruno, I don't think we would have lost to Burnley. But United, technical, too slow. It's not technical, it's too slow. It's really, really frustrating that we don't have Ralf Rangnick in for the Arsenal game. And I tell you what, we basically don't have him for the Palace game either, because Palace is on Sunday lunchtime and we're playing Arsenal on Thursday tea time. So what are you going to do with one day? Second part of Simon's tweet makes me think the new COVID rules from today could have something to do with this, says Ben Trelaw. It's been confirmed by Simon Stone, yes, that Manchester United will not have Ralf Rangnick in play for the game against Arsenal, which is a shambles, an absolute shambles. Club continuing to work through visa and COVID process. Disappointing. It wouldn't matter. It really wouldn't matter if it was Norwich at home. It wouldn't matter. You'd go, there's probably enough we can do to beat Norwich at home. But it's such a big game. And I think that to not have him in is really difficult. I mean, people are talking about COVID protocols. There's new COVID protocols in the UK today. Suck on it. Because, and I mean that, because at the end of the day, Rangnick to Manchester United was well established last Thursday. Get him into the country last Friday. Get him into the country over the weekend. You can't use COVID rule. You can't use COVID protocols today as a reason for not getting him into the country on Saturday. So at the end of the day, Manchester United have messed this up because they didn't get Ollie out of the club in the international break. They thought Ollie was good enough to stay the season, and then when Watford smashed us, we had to rush around and try and scramble around, and because of that, we've put ourselves in this position. And look, hopefully we can beat Arsenal on Thursday, but I think our chances of beating Arsenal with Carrick in charge are nowhere near as what they would be if you had a new manager in charge, because you get that new manager bounce. The crowd will be very different on Thursday with Rangnick to what it will be with Carrick. They'll try. I'm sure they'll try, but it will be very, very different. Suddenly you start wondering now about, before the game, the banner of Ollie goes round, Carrick's still in charge. Does it generate a somber mood where you actually need an aggressive, ruthless mood? And that's what you're going to get. So, I don't know. We need the disappointing thing is we need to start this reset. We need to start this new Manchester United, and we're being hindered again by the club's inability to foresee these issues and solve them. And look, maybe Conte's situation is very different to Rangnick's situation. Maybe because he's managed in the Premier League before, he's already got a work permit for this country. That's probably what's happened. But it's very, 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 very disappointing that Rangnick cannot be involved for the Arsenal game. What I would say is that those Zoom calls need to be happening now. We need to be taking out a big contract with Zoom and getting him in one of those conference theatres where he can talk to the players, because we need some sort of influence. And it might sound really stupid, but book out Cineworld in Manchester and get him on the big screen, get all the players and the coaches in there and let him just chat at them for 2 hours. I went to watch James Bond a few weeks ago, a couple of hours, found it really interesting, and it had me thinking for a good few hours afterwards. Imagine if you get all the United players and coaches sat there listening to Rangnick for a couple of hours today and tomorrow on a Zoom call. Just do it. To be honest, do it. People can laugh at me, but it's a good idea. Get Rangnick on a big screen in front of all the players and the coaches and let him talk about what he wants, because it will work. If I'm Ralf Rangnick and I'm talking to you lot and I'm going, look, midfielders, this is what I want you to do. I don't want you sitting there in front of your back four. I want the back four high up. I want my centre backs here. One of you's in front of Aubameyang, one is behind. When the ball comes into his feet, one of you goes for it, one of you watches the ball in behind. Midfield 2, I want you higher up the pitch. Front 4, I want you together, closing them down. We get high up the pitch, and when you get the ball, I want you to move the ball quickly and forward. I don't want any of this looking around, passing it backwards. We move the ball forwards. If we lose the ball, we go and win the ball again. It's going to be high intensity football. That's how we're going to play. Imagine 2 hours of that. I fear that our players will run around like headless chickens to try and impress Rangnick, and Arsenal will just pass through us, as Rory Saunders. There is... look, we can have a very different Man United against Arsenal without Rangnick in the touchline. It's just obviously it's better to physically have him there, but there has to be, over the next couple of days, conversations going on between the players and Rangnick. I hope Man United, and we'll find out as well, Man United might just go, look, it's too complicated, we haven't got the Wi-Fi, we're just going to leave it to Carrick and McKenna and he'll start off on Friday. But that to me is a big mistake, really big mistake. We need to utilise his ideas ASAP. Can he pick the team? The thing is, it becomes very confused then, doesn't it? But But yeah, we'll see. Thanks everyone who's watching, by the way. Make sure you smash a like on the video. So Ralf Rangnick is out of the Arsenal game. This is official. This is from Simon Stone. He will not be available to manage Manchester United. And that's just... it'll be a boost for Arsenal as well. Football's a game that's played on the pitch with physicality, but it's also played in the head as well. And Arsenal will be more confident psychologically because it's Carrick than they will be if it would have been Ralf Rangnick. So, it's a disappointment. It shouldn't have happened, and I think the club need to take a long, hard look at themselves again because they've been working on this for over a week, and for some reason they still can't get it done. I'm not saying to bribe anybody to get the work permit, but I'm sure there was a way of this being dealt with a lot quicker, and United haven't done it, and unfortunately, it's left us in a position whereby we don't have our manager in place for a very, very, very important game. Very important game. The most important thing is that we cannot lose on Thursday. I mean, we really need to win, but we cannot lose. Just fast track it, yeah, Ricardo, definitely. We could have expedited it, yes, we should have done. But unfortunately, the evidence when it comes to Manchester United's negotiating skills is poor. We always talk about transfers taking 6 weeks. Varane should have been in for opening day, didn't play until the Southampton game, where he was actually on the bench for the Southampton game. He didn't play till the Wolves game. So we bought Varane at the start of July. He still missed the first 2 games of the season because of technicalities and paperwork. We're just not learning our lessons, are we? We're not anticipating the dangers or the pitfalls or the barriers. It becomes a massive game against Arsenal now, and we'll see what happens on Thursday. But it's another game for Carrick. I don't think this is really going to be Carrick in charge, by the way. I think this has to have some influence from the manager. I mean, Rangnick is officially Manchester United manager now. He was announced yesterday, pending work permits. He's in charge. Like, if United... I would hazard a guess United announced it yesterday because they knew they had to announce it. They probably didn't want to announce it yesterday without him actually being physically there, but they announced it. It's like signing a player pending a medical because they're in the Euros or they're at the World Cup. That's what we've done. We've signed a manager and announced it pending a bloody work permit or whatever the COVID restrictions are. But there has to be a touch point. If Carrick wins on Thursday and we play good football, I would hazard a guess that's going to be because he's had some influence. There has to be some conversations between them. But yeah, Maguire will definitely start now. McTominay and Fred will start now. We're not going to see Rangnick on the training ground looking at the players. So yeah, he's not going to be able to pick the team. But that's a shame. I am going to be live at 2 o'clock with a preview of the Arsenal game anyway, which in some ways is going to be a little bit easier to predict now. I think we all know what's going to happen, and we'll talk about that at 2 o'clock. But as things stand, Rangnick will be given money in January. That's a story that's come out last night. They're looking at Amadou Haidara of Leipzig as a potential midfielder. I think would be very good in our system if he transported well from Germany. 33 million quid. Mata's going to leave, and Rangnick will not be in charge for the game against Arsenal. He will not be in charge. Work permit, red tape, United haven't got it sorted, so we're still managed by the same coaching setup that should have gone with Ollie. But there we go. And I just go back to what I said at the start. If we'd sacked Ollie after the Liverpool game, none of this would have happened. But again, ultimately, I think Rangnick is a good signing by the board, but I look at the Glazers and I look at Ed Woodward and I think this is on you, and the sooner Ed Woodward goes, the better. The sooner Richard Arnold becomes the CEO and lets the footballing side of things be done by Mata and Rangnick, the better. This is just another bad decision by the CEO and Joel Glazer, who decided to keep Ollie after the Liverpool game, and ultimately You know what? They custard pied themselves. They did. They did the meeting after the Liverpool game. Remember, Romano even had a video ready. Here we go. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer sacked. You know, he had that video ready on the Monday morning. So that's how close they were to sacking Solskjaer. And Joel Glazer and Woodward were like, no, let's stick with him. And that's cost us 3 weeks. They were like, we know better than everybody else in football. Let's keep Ole for another 3 weeks. And it's messed us up. And we're still paying the price now. Thanks everyone for watching. Speak to you in a little bit.